What's up, Duval? It's your favorite former Jag, Bucky Brooks, and this is Believe in Jags, a podcast dedicated to all things Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm really excited because I'm down in Jacksonville. I'm down in Duval checking out training camp. And so I'm going to give you some real live perspective on what's going on your favorite team. But before we get to that, let's send a shout out to our sponsor. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while games are being played. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% bet credit on your first deposit of up to $250. Bet Online, the game starts here. And speaking of the game starting here, we're down in Jacksonville because training camp has started. And look, man, we're 2 weeks away from being able to see the Jaguars in action. And I think everyone should be excited about that. And what I want to do, because I've been at the first few days of practice, I've kind of had an opportunity to see and digest what's going on just at the outset. And I think what everyone has to understand, the first couple of days of training camp are what falls up under the acclimation period in the National Football League. So the acclimation period is teams are allowed to put on their helmets. They can go in jerseys and shorts and run around and basically do OTA type stuff where they can practice, they can do the competitive things, they can do one-on-ones and group and team and those things, but still non-contact. And that's designed to allow players, because remember, they had a 6-week break before they came back, give players an opportunity to kind of work their way, not necessarily back into shape, but to kind of get ready for the contact that will commence next week when they can really go full go in training camp. Regardless of the restrictions, you still can begin to kind of see people turn up the heat, turn up the intensity a little bit. You can see coaches kind of change from we're in teach and instruct mode to now we're in evaluation mode with some of the teaching and instruction still going on. And I'm going to say this about the Jags, and I know everyone is always optimistic about their team when the season kicks off, but I can say there are a few things that kind of stand out to me when I look at the team practice and just the way they're going about business. To me, it appears that there's been a big, maybe a talking point or a concerted effort, a theme. Be a pro. What I'm seeing from the team, greater attention to discipline and detail in everything that they're doing, from running on and off the field to the way they break the huddle on offense and defense, to the way calls are communicated between coaches and players, and the way it's relayed from player to player in those things, the way they're finishing drills, the way they are really emphasizing being great at the little things. It appears to me that some of the lessons from the end of the season where the team fell apart, they're really trying to take care of that on the front end by really making sure that all these guys exhibit the professionalism that you want to see from the players and then collectively as a team. Just there's a different sense of urgency that you're seeing from the team that maybe last year, me included, maybe we kind of overlooked, because coming off the heels of the 2022 season when the team was 9-8, won a playoff game, kind of felt like, you know what, this team is going to be pretty good. We got it. We're just going to pick up where we left off. And maybe what we all learned, Jags fans included, that there are no next steps in football, that you always have to go back to square one and build the team back up and hope that you're able to progress beyond what the previous season, beyond where the previous season ended. And it appears that has really been an emphasis, like, hey, let's make sure we're really good at the small things, because the small things really impact all things. And if we're good at doing those little things, we'll have a chance to be really, really good as a team. You can see that has been a priority in camp because it's a very focused group, a very dialed in group. And even though I can see the guys having fun, to me, there's a serious undertone to the camp. The other thing that is a clear observation, and it's something that has come up in conversation with players and coaches in their media sessions. I would say more attention to the chemistry and the trust within the team. Trevor Lawrence said it at his post-practice presser after day one. That chemistry and trust is everything when it came to building the team. He talked about last year, some of that might have been off because, you had new players in prominent roles in the middle of the season due to injuries, and they want to do a better job of making sure that everyone is bonded together. And so some of that is being intentional about how they're spending time on and off the field together. Some of that is making sure that players that may be listed as backups have an opportunity to work with the starters in the event that an injury occurs, that it's not weird. There's nothing that is off when it comes to that. So that has been a big part of it. And I will say the chemistry and the trust has been talked about with the coaches. The coaches talked about how it's really important that the team really trust one another. They really buy into what the mission of the team is, and they buy into the values of the team. And then the players hold each other accountable to buying into those things. And so they're able to call each other out when they fall short of expectations or meeting the standard, that the new players that are brought in understand what the expectations are, from the way they go about practice to the way they finish drills to the way they meet, to all of those things that are really a part of the culture, really making sure that every player in the building understands what the standard is, and they work daily to meet and uphold the standards. That's been key, because I've heard more conversations from players and talking to the media talk about that part of the team. And last year it was about plays and execution and how good it was and expectations, whatever. This year I've heard more conversations about, hey, let's make sure that the chemistry of the team is right. Make sure we're doing the things that we need to do to build the trust with one another. So when we do hit those rough patches in the seasons, we don't fall apart, we pull it together. And the only way you can do that is to have a really bonded team that really trusts each other, and they're going to go to bat for one another because they know that the player to the right and to the left of them is also committed to doing the right things to make sure that the team is in the best position to win at the end of the day. The final part of what I would say is just like a clear observation just from the rhythm and the cadence of the camp is this team is really working to prepare to handle any adversity that may happen down the road. So I talked about in building the chemistry and the trust, how they've been rotating maybe backup players into prominent roles and how they've been kind of switching the lineups and those things to make sure everyone is comfortable with playing with one another. But also just making sure that, look, man, hard things are hard, and that you handle the hard things the right way, that when it gets hard and we kind of hit those bumps in the road, we don't just fall apart, that the team pulls together. Perhaps last season, the last stretch of the season, when, look, you only need to win 1 or 2 games to go to the playoffs and you couldn't get it done, rather than some of the infighting and the bickering that might have been going on behind closed doors, let's squash those things and make sure that, one, the players that you have in the locker room are the right players where they're not going to fall apart like that if things don't go well. 2, let's be more intentional about having these tough conversations about, hey, we're going to have some tough moments. And in those tough moments, here's how we need to respond rather than react. Response is a very intentional reaction to the adversity that hits. Let's make sure we respond the right way so we can get past whatever the adversity is, and we can see it to the other side and get back on the winning track. There's been more emphasis of that. And I think as we continue to get down the line with training camp, you will see more deliberate actions from the coaches to create hypothetical adverse situations that the team has to work through so they can begin to test themselves on their response to those negative things. So meaning, hey, offense just turned it over, defense go on the field. Here we go, situational awareness. What are we going to do? How are we going to put the fire out? Those kinds of things. This team has handled adversity better. And whether that's injuries, whether that's poor play, whether that's mess ups or turnovers or those things, this team has to be a tougher team mentally and physically, but more so mentally, to be able to get past the adversity. So now let's talk about the units. Let's talk about the offense, and then we'll discuss a little bit about the defense and what we've seen. Offensively, here's what I see, because they haven't had pads on. Most of the work has been more pass centric. It's been a lot of throwing and catching, a lot of route running, more 7-on-7 type stuff, not as much 9-on-7 stuff because you just don't have on pads. And I will say that the passing game, the two guys to watch in the passing game right away have been the newcomers, Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. And the reason that a lot of eyes and attention have been on them is because they're new and they're replacing guys that, you worried, like, what are the Jags going to do without Calvin Ridley and then without Zay Jones? Let me say Gabe Davis and BTJ have been as advertised. They are definitely the dynamic weapons and threats that you want. You can see the speed and the explosiveness from those guys when they're on the field. I will say this in Gabe Davis in particular, man, his size, you feel his size on the field. I mean, he is a strong, sturdy, built guy. He's different than Calvin Ridley, who was slender and speedy and swift. Gabe Davis is more of a rugged, physical playmaker that appears to be able to win those matchups, not only on those 50-50 balls down the field, but, man, those tough contested catches down in the red zone. He has some girth to him. He has some size that you want to take advantage of down in the red zone. BTJ is still figuring it out, but, man, you can see the speed, the athleticism. He is gifted. It's really easy for him when you watch him in individual drills and the routes and, man, in and out of cuts and just how easy he catches the ball. He's a very talented player. I mean, upper echelon talent, a guy who has the tools that you can see if his game really comes together, he can be a high-end playmaker in this league. So those guys are as advertised. I would say a guy that hasn't been really talked about a lot. He's been mentioned in passing, and I've been guilty of it. Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay has been in the league for a while, played in Baltimore, was a Pro Bowl returner in Baltimore, kick returner, punt returner, put the ball in the paint a few different ways for the Ravens. And let me say this, he is slotted to play the role that Jamal Agnew played, but he may even give you more than Agnew gave you because he's a really established receiver. Watching him, you can see him handle some of the bubble screens, some of the fly sweeps, some of the things that are designed to get the ball in the hands of a speedy playmaker and let it happen. He can do that, man. You can see him on the screen game where he catches it. He has the burst. He has the juice. Also, he's an accomplished wide receiver that can get out there and he can run some of those vertical routes. Last year, when the team got in trouble and had some injuries, they didn't have enough wide receivers that they could really put in the game and say, hey, let's go make a play. This guy is capable of being a wide receiver 3 or 4. Devin Duvernay can fit into those roles as a number 3 or number 4 receiver. Keep an eye on him as we go through the preseason. The plans for him they may have bigger plans for him than initially intended. He might end up being the 4th receiver when they go to some of those 4 wide receiver packages because of his speed, his explosiveness, and his ability to really make these home run plays on catch and run concepts. So keep an eye on Devin Duvernay because Gabe Davis, BTJ, they have been really, really good. And I know it's only 2 days of training camp, but they've been as advertised. It's exactly what you want to see from the newcomers right away. Now let's talk about the old heads, the established guys, the guys who I say are 1A and 1B in the passing game. Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. Let's start with Christian Kirk. Man, he is good. He is really, really good. Like just a really patient and disciplined route runner who understands how to get open versus various techniques and tactics. This is a guy in the slot, man. He just has the patience to take his time, to really understand where he fits in the progression and to give himself plenty of opportunity to wiggle and work away from coverage. You can see that this guy on option routes, this guy working on those digs that really come over the top of crossing routes, he is going to win and win consistently. He looks healthy. He looks fresh. He has the juice and the energy. No ill effects from the injury that sidelined at the end of the season. He just looks ready to go. And I'm going to say this, and it's not a direct comparison, but after watching the Netflix series Receiver and watching Amon-Ra St. Brown and how he impacted the Detroit Lions, to me, I can see Christian Kirk taking his game up a notch and doing some of those things where Christian Kirk kind of gets labeled as the slot receiver, but few view him as a real number 1. To me, when I watch him work, he can be a number 1 receiver, albeit in a different way, much like the way that Amon-Ra St. Brown has to do it. Look, man, I think Christian Kirk can be one of those guys that has all-star honors attached to his name when he has a full season or when Trevor Lawrence plays at the level that we expect him to play at. So keep an eye on Christian Kirk. He looks really, really good. Evan Ingram is rock solid. I would say the consummate professional, the way that he works before practice, after practice, the way that he just constantly is on himself to improve his pass catching and route running ability. To me, he is the safety valve. He's the security blanket that Trevor Lawrence feels good about. So when I think about these two working together, 1A, 1B, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram in any particular order, I understand why Doug Peterson talks about this offense has to work inside out, meaning 13 and 17 are the primaries. Everybody else, they're the complements to what they do on the inside. Feel good about what I've seen. Trevor Lawrence. There can be some conversation about Trevor Lawrence, a couple interceptions that have kind of popped up in the red zone. Some of those may be his fault. Some of those may be the wide receiver fault. I think what everyone has to understand, the money cannot change, one, how the Jaguars utilize Trevor Lawrence. Two, we can't give him inflated expectations based on how he was paid. I know the market dictated that he is one of the highest paid players at the position. But what you always have to do, and this is the line that general managers and executives toe when you pay the quarterback, you pay him what the market bears, but you have to play him the way that fits his skill set. So we cannot expect Trevor Lawrence to suddenly become Patrick Mahomes, suddenly try to play like Josh Allen. What we can expect is Trevor Lawrence to be the best version of himself within the confines of this offense. And what I mean by that is Trevor Lawrence's job in this offense is to spread the wealth, get the ball to the playmakers, and to get out the way. If Trevor Lawrence is playing at a high level, he is operating efficiently, meaning I would say completion percentage 65, 67%, somewhere in that range. He's effective because the ball is going to 5 or 6 playmakers at the end of the game. The stat sheet shows balance where maybe you have 4 or 5 guys with 5 to 6 catches because he's distributing the wealth. And there needs to be some explosives, meaning the ball has to go down the field more than it's gone down the field in the past. So a home run or two, the Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., Devin Duvernay, somewhere where you're getting the explosive chunk plays that eventually result in points. If he's doing that, then Trevor is according to script. First couple of days of training camp, look, man, he's throwing the ball pretty well. Look, every pass is not going to be perfect, but to me, he's on track. He's on track because I've seen a different Trevor when it comes to the leadership, and so I'm excited about that. He'll continue to get better as they continue to develop the chemistry that you need to play at a high level. Now, let's go to the defense. Defensively, the number one thing that you look for when you're an observer and you have a new defense coordinator, man, do they look like they understand what they're doing? Yes, they do look like they understand what they're doing. I would say it's been great communication between coaches and players to players. So as a high school coach, one thing that I always do is I tell my high school guys, when I send the call in, I want you to look to your buddies and there's a hand signal that lets me know that everyone knows exactly what we're doing. Jaguars are doing the same. You're seeing relaying of calls. You're seeing confirmation of calls. To me, that's good coaching. And more importantly, that is good execution from the players. The other thing that you look for when you're looking at a new defensive scheme and a new coordinator, how he's impacting the team, look, it's as simple as AAA, alignment, assignment, adjustment. When I look at the Jags and the offense breaks the huddle, do they get lined up right? When the offense motions, does it look like they understand the assignment and they make the proper adjustment? And two, and then finally, is the execution at a high level? When I look at the Jaguars right now with Ryan Nielsen and the staff, man, I am seeing the triple A's all the time. Team lines up, they understand the assignment, they make the adjustment. We're not seeing egregious errors where guys are running free through the secondary, guys aren't getting lined up, guys are having these epic mental errors that everyone can see. That's not happening. Now, that doesn't mean that they're playing perfect ball because only the coaches know. But what I can tell you, they're not having these egregious errors that plagued them last year that led to big plays against them. The other thing that I'm seeing from the defense, I'm seeing an obsession with turnovers. Early in practice, turnover drills, punching the ball out, scooping scores, tip drills, things that are really designed to reinforce the habits of getting the ball, taking the ball away. The turnover battle is the number one deciding factor in football. You win the turnover battle, you win games. It's been proven. The numbers suggest that. There's a great emphasis on the defense side of the ball. I see it in practice. I see them working on what the coaches are telling us that they're emphasizing. The actions match the words, which to me suggests good coaching. As it relates to the lineups, a lot of musical chairs. You're seeing guys play multiple positions trying to get ready. So there are various variations of the nickel packages. I mean, there may be times where you see Antonio Johnson, Andre Cisco at safety. You may see Tyson Campbell and Ronald Darby and Darnell Savage at nickel. You may see different combinations with Antonio Johnson and Dewey at safety and Jarian Jones and those guys in at nickel and corner and those things. And what I love about that is it's not, ones go, twos go, threes go. It may change on every play. And what that to me is, it's about cross-training your secondary to get them ready for roles where if you have an injury in the middle of a game and we got to throw somebody in at nickel, they practice it, they played it before, they're comfortable. If you want to this week have a different matchup package based on what the offense presents, we got guys who are practicing at different spots, so they're comfortable. I'm seeing a comfortability with the team and the scheme. And to me, that suggests that good things are going to happen when it comes down to being able to play on game day, and execution is demanded and demanded at a high level. The guys really understand it. The other thing that I'm seeing is I'm seeing great effort to the ball, running to the ball on run plays, tracking down balls on pass plays. Good things happen when you run. Good things happen when you run to the ball. I'm seeing that from the Jaguars. In terms of players that are making plays, like there's a thing on defense where we say the ball will find you. If you just do what you're supposed to do, you're in the right spot, the ball will kind of find you. I've seen in the last couple of days a number of turnovers from the defense. Some people will say, man, that's bad offensive football. But for me, I'm saying, no, that's good defensive ball, because the way that the plays are being derived is guys simply making the plays that are there. For instance, Dewey picked off 2 passes on day 2 of training camp. And part of that was because he's in the right position. Both times he's in the right position. He didn't have to stretch. He wasn't out of line going to make the play. The ball was an overthrow. He was in the area. He caught it. Boom, they made a play. Other guys making interceptions off tips and overthrows. Things that are just well within playing the defense and making plays. This defense is solid. Am I saying it's a top 10 defense? It's too early to determine that. But what I am saying, this defense is online. They understand exactly what they're doing. They're adhering to the AAA's alignment, assignment, adjustment, and they're playing really, really well. And so my observation, first couple of days of training camp, everything is A-okay. Everything is going to plan. We look good. Haven't had any injuries. They're conditioning after practice. This team looks fit. They look focused. More importantly, they look committed to the fundamentals. You do those things, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of games. So that's it. That's a quick observation early in training camp. I'm going to pop on tomorrow with a podcast. Here's what we want to do tomorrow. We want to do a little something different on the podcast. I want you guys to hit me either here in the comments, hit me on Twitter at Bucky Brooks. I want you to ask some questions, have some comments, so we can have an interactive podcast on Friday, like a little freestyle Friday. We go back and forth. I kind of give you some insights. You ask questions. I give answers. We have fun. We kind of get it done after the 3rd day of training camp. So let's make sure we do that. I'm going to put out the bat signal on Twitter to see if we can get some commentary from you guys. Should be a lot of fun. But until then, make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you check out all the great things we're doing on the Believe Network. Make sure you check out the shows that are on Believe on Fubo. Make sure you check out the podcast that we have, Believe on Jaguars, on YouTube, but also some of the other ones. If you just kind of want to see what the enemy is doing, what they're talking about, check out some of the things that we have going on Believe. Look, this has been a great start to the football season. All of my colleagues are really doing their thing when it comes to covering training camp. I want to make sure that we are upholding the standards. So let's make sure we tune in. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Believe in Jaguars. We'll talk to you soon.